We know it's not always easy finding passion and purpose. We know sometimes you can feel more overwhelmed than inspired. But we also know that connecting people to jobs that matter really matters to you. And that's why we're here for you. We know you need top talent to build your business, so we connect you to more than 33 million eager job seekers across the region. And we know strong relationships are essential. We speak your language.
Hello Job Street สวัสดีค่ะ
Hello Job Street
and provide experienced local support. We also know you want powerful data and insights to empower you and make you look smart in front of your boss. We know while hiring is never simple, our innovations and products make it easier. From delivering better value for your investment to standing out from the crowd. We've got you covered. And we know you like results. We're 3 times more successful at placing talent with employers. How do we know all this? We're your hiring expert and the #1 trusted talent partner in Asia. Start hiring with us now. We know you want to.
Welcome everyone to the first of 3 webinars brought to you by Human Resources Online in partnership with Seek Asia. Today's topic is on driving digital transformation to future-proof your business, essentials for HR and business decision makers. How are SME leaders, CHROs, and change champions going to assemble a toolkit and lead digital transformation for their organization? So for the upcoming webinars, we'll be discussing internal mobility and career planning, as well as the impact of a hybrid workplace on your recruitment strategy. But let's set the stage for the current scenario. With COVID-19 battering bottom lines last year and even this, a silver lining appeared in the form of enterprises, big and small, across Southeast Asia being pushed to improve their business recovery and growth. And the #1 way to achieve this was and remains digitalization. Therein also lies the challenge because it is not specific to HR, but company-wide. In the April 2021 study, the majority of respondents agree that digital transformation increases efficiency of internal operations, that's 94% in Asia, innovation, 78% for Asia, and helps to improve business decisions, 83% for Asia. Now, before we start the webinar proper, I'd like to do a technical check. Can everyone see and hear me well? You can say hello or hi on the chat, and our tech support team is on standby. So if you're facing any audio or video difficulties, please visit the chat panel to write to team and we'll get you some help right away. I know they have been helping me. All right, great, thank you. Let's get started. I'd like run through some housekeeping tips and tricks to make the most of experience with us. We will be having a panel session where I'll be interviewing 3 gentlemen, which I'll introduce in just a moment. You can then look forward to a live Q&A session, and many of you have pre-submitted your questions during the registration, so we'll be sure to bring those into the conversation. And for those who haven't, fret not, please feel free to start sharing your questions right away. And you can do so by sharing your questions in the Q&A chat box on the right of your screen. Even better, you can vote for your favorite question so it has a higher priority chance in getting answered. We did receive a lot of questions prior to events, so we'll put those up for voting. And before we get into the panel session, let's try and see how the polling system works. Can you see the poll on the side there? So we have a question for you. Right? And the question is, how much of a priority is digital transformation for your organization? 3 options here. It is our #1 priority. It is in the top 3 of our priorities, or option 3, it is not a priority at the moment. Now, as we await the results, let's now welcome panelists who are a great representation of the region. First, we have Peter Bitos, the CEO of Seek Asia, and Peter brings over 20 years of experience in tech, media, and telco sectors across a career that includes various CEO and senior management positions in developed and developing markets and organizations of all sizes. His achievements include scaling up digital businesses from scratch, and he has a track record of leading digital business transformation programs across Asia Pacific. He's now in Sydney, looking cold. Next, we have Nanang Chalit, the VP of People, Tokopedia. Pak Nanang oversees the entire spectrum of HR and people functions in Tokopedia's journey to become the most admired company in Indonesia's tech industry. Previously, he was HR Director for Commercial Functions and Country Head for Employer Brand at Unilever and experienced various HR leadership roles at both country and regional setup. And of course, Pak Nanang is out in Indonesia. Last but not least, in Singapore, DM Prasad, Senior Director, Strategy, People and Organization, GovTech. DNP or Prasad is an executive coach and a transformational HR leader with expertise in leading scale transformation, building and scaling organizations and functions, and shaping and nurturing cultures and careers. And previous to his current tenure, he founded Noetic Step and has also served as head of people services at Google. So before we get into the questions, let's have a quick look at the poll results. Okay, I have to submit as well. And the poll is saying, can I see the results yet? Oh, okay. We'll get to the poll results unless I'm missing something. But anyway, let's begin the session here with the first question. I've got to ask to all our panelists, right? Where do you personally stand in your organization's digital transformation journey? And do sum up your highs and your lows. Maybe we'll start with you, Peter.
Hi, Frida. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Fantastic. So hello, everyone, all across Southeast Asia, from a very cold and locked down Sydney, where I'm supposed to be on vacation, not turning into too much vacation. So anyway, but the funny thing, at Job Street, we've been a digital company of sorts for since the .com era. And the funny thing about it, as history goes, is even when you're a digital company, you always go through waves of digital transformation. There is no such thing as finished, right? So we ourselves are just embarking just at the beginning of a journey of a major transformation to do two things. Firstly, to take what has been country-based businesses and turn it into a true APAC business. And secondly, to take what has been very old .com era platforms in many ways and turn them into true digital platforms built for this decade to come. And those two steps are the major strategy effort underway to help us not only modernize, be more productive, but most importantly, innovate and help people find jobs, which is our core business. And so we're at the early stages of one, having been a digital company our whole life.
All right. I'm just going to, before I pass this over to Pat Nanang, I'm just looking at the poll results right now. At a 54%, it is in the top 3 of our priorities. And standing at number 1 priority at 28%. So, and at 18%, not a priority at the moment. That's kind of scary. But top 3, right? And number 1 for only about 25% of the organization. So, Pat Nanang, do share your highs and lows.
Thank you, Frida. And I think, again, just to dovetail what Peter was just sharing, right? If I can answer the same questions, like where do I think Tokopedia as a company actually stand? Again, we have leveraged as a marketplace company. We actually have now reached a scale where we reach to 100 million users every single month, and active monthly users. With 11 million merchants actually in the platform. And then we actually, again, if you look at the scale, now we have something like 550 million products listed with a transparent pricing, of course, in the platform. So from that journey that the company has started in 2009, that is actually a kind of long marathon, right? And then again, if I look into how I lead personally within an HR space, I can also share similarly. It's there. It's an ongoing journey. So I actually shared. When I have this kind of questions, also I always try to put a number on it so people can imagine. So I would say it's an 8 out of 10. And then the reason why it's 8, I think that's 8 symbols. If you turn it 90 degrees, is also a symbol of infinity.
Right.
So the digital is really an infinite game, I would say.
Right.
You think you reach certain points, but actually you just opening up a new door that actually tells you, the journey is actually still very long, right? And again, I think from HR perspective, what I can share from HR practices, I also personally turn around. We do a lot of digital initiative in recruitment, and again, the high and low is actually exactly it, right? So you were thinking that you can solve a problem with technology in 3 or 4 months time, and again, in my case, it was back then was trying to install some sort of an AI shortlisting algo in our applicant tracking system, and we were thinking it as easy as 3 months it will be done, but actually the law was that you don't, right? You need to actually talk with the business and trying to find what the right algo is. But by the time it's actually achieved, which is the high points, again, I'm dealing with about 1 million CVs that coming to Tokopedia. And again, Indonesia is a big country, right? And then tech is one of the top sectors right now. So that 1 million CVs, I can assure you for sure, if I don't have that algo, I don't have that AI, I will not. I will not be able to run 100 headcounts recruitment team, despite it's a tech company, right? I need to also be run a scalable operation. So again, the high point was that when that digital unlock happens, then it's the best feeling in the world.
Right. So it's very interesting. You're saying infinity. It never ends, right?
It never ends.
And everything in Indonesia is volume, right? It's the numbers are astounding. Prasad.
Yeah, Freda. Peter spoke about waves of digital transformation. Pananang spoke about infinity. That was really interesting. Let me just start by saying Rome was not built in a day. Okay? And then I'll tell you why it's in the context of GovTech, the organization that I represent. We are a very unique organization. We are a 4.5-year-old organization with a 40-year-old history dating back to establishment of what we call the National Computer Board in 1981 in Singapore. So, with that kind of a history, and then that also talks about the computerization, e-governance, and digital government journey that Singapore government has embarked upon. So we are in the middle of our own transformation journey, and I agree with Peter when he said it's not just about digital transformation. Our organization, GovTech, is in the middle of a transformation journey. And to add to that, we have a role to partner with, consult, guide other ministries or agencies on their digital transformation. That's our core job. So our journey is that of the entire government, all the ministries and agencies. So across the spectrum, I think we're making good progress. We need to remain cognizant of the fact that there are several who are just digital starters. There are some who are digital literates and some who are in the digital performers category. If I kind of look at the digital maturity index that BCG comes with, that's how we could categorize. But people are in different phases. So we see this journey as one in a continuum. There is no stopping this. And that goes back to the infinity that Pananang was talking about. And we need to bring everybody together, even as we make efforts to play a role model in our own transformation journey. So therein lies both the excitement and the challenges. So the highs and the lows are all part of the journey that we take.
Right, and never a boring day. And there's a question about the different generations a little later. Now, Pak Nanang, so Tokopedia, one of Indonesia's most exciting technology companies, and starting out as recently as 2009, and we say recent, right? And you've seen the company grow by leaps and bounds. So share with us your journey and how you have scaled the people process, for your work, for your nakama or workforce using technology.
Yeah, thanks, Frida, for that question. So the way I look at it, again, I'm just sharing from a people practices within the function that I'm leading in HR. So what I kind of think what we did right at the beginning was actually involving as much as possible people into the process, right? And I think that's where again, I can just share a bit the story that we did in Tokopedia. When we started that journey, we were asking ourselves, these 4 questions. I mean, if you read books like Drucker, you would ask, that 5 questions that you need to ask the organizations, right? I also have my playbook, so you need to keep asking these 4 questions whenever you are an HR professionals. So you ask whether you have the right talent to grow your companies, right? Organization, whether you have the right organization that meets your ambition, whether you have the right capability, and capability means either it's a new skills that you need to acquire, or it's also a technology investment and stuff like that, and then whether you have the right culture to do that. So I use the same questions to my own team in people, and then we actually try to kind of put everyone's in that sessions to really create a vision, right? How do we translate that dream of being the most admired technology company in Indonesia through a winning people ecosystem, we call it, because by the time you're getting into digital and then thinking with digital mindset, you always need to think about ecosystem, right? And then we actually launched this simple campaign to ourselves, that we said that here is what we need to do in digital. We need to make things more simple, more human, more impact, more fun, and more technology driven. And then we call it, you have to make the shift through this SHIFT, right? And then by the time we launch that, and then again, suddenly magic happens because people are owning it, and then they actually come up with ideas, right? So from recruitment, like I said, in just 1 year time, we set up an ecosystem of recruitment where you can still process 1 million CVs of almost 1,000 kind of openings and vacancies because of the growth of the company. And then it's all now navigated almost all of it are technology enabled, unless unless the culture fit interview, that's still a person who's doing it. And then the final, the hiring managers interview. So there are a couple, depend on the seniority of a level, right? But the shortlisting processes and everything, we actually put an AI into our applicant tracking systems that help us to quickly get those CVs that already benchmark with public data. And then again, public data is actually anything that in social media, like some that you can easily pick without having to bother about internet information security and stuff like that. And employee experience, we also did the same with technology. We can actually create an ecosystem where the first time we introduce actually mental health support for emotional well-being, it's immediately digital. Like it's a confidential ecosystem where you just need to go to in our internal app, you can actually browse which psychologist that you want to talk to, and then you just pick that person, and then you can have this audio visual kind of psychological counseling, and it's all again company sponsored, all this support, right? And again, in people partnering, the people partner teams comes up with this idea of how can we create data-driven decisions making, and the team actually come up with this whole proposals of how you should have a dashboard by functions with attritions and everything figured out. So suddenly discussion is no longer ad hoc, because I was living in the world before technology company in the previous company, which is again, despite it's a FMCG, but it's actually still pretty conventional, where your people partnering skills, it relies on how you build relationship and how do you deal ad hoc discussions. We actually have moved toward everything is dashboard related. You can always look into where your recruitment gaps are, what's your hotspot attritions and so on. And then it's all more of a democratic process where people will actually show up and say, here is where I want to digitalize my job, which is, I think that's an interesting takeout that I was not imagining that you can actually do that, because initially I was thinking anything digital, you need to kind of top-down driven, all these things. But I think I have a different experience that I can share today.
Right. It's very interesting how employees are taking ownership, right? And I just want to ask a little bit about the mental health one. Was that something that was introduced because of the pandemic, or even prior to the pandemic? This is just so intriguing for me.
Yeah, we did a design thinking work process back in 2019, and it was actually one of the module that we planned to introduce in 2021.
Right.
But then because the pandemic came, so we just reshuffled the priorities and we launched it exactly a week after March 2020. By the time pandemic hits. And again, the adoption rate of that solution was surprisingly high. And then again, it's until now it's being still used by our employees.
Right, and the timing, right, is impeccable.
Yes, exactly. The timing is just right in a way.
Who knew? But then it's very interesting how you had to change priorities because of what the organization need and what people needs as well.
Exactly.
Prasad, how was your experience in implementing digital transformation for the workforce, and how did it differ from what partner Nang shared?
Yeah, Fred, I'm not too sure if the experience differs significantly. I think the playbook that Pananang was talking about works brilliantly, and we have something similar. But what I do want to share is I want to take an organizational lens and just not a lens of an HR team and people. I wanted to share a couple of anchors based on which we work towards our digitalization journey. 3 aspects of mindset and a little bit about how we approach the capability building that we were talking about, right? So before I start, let me share a quote that I came across, and this is from a CEO of an ideation platform who said, "Don't be fooled by some of the digital transformation buzz out there." Let me repeat that. Don't be fooled by some of the digital transformation buzz out there. Digital transformation is a business discipline or company philosophy and not just a project. I think it resonates very strongly with me, right? So in terms of how we've approached as an organization, there were 2 things. One, we said the biggest part of digital transformation is actually changing the mindset. The second one is we cannot delegate digital transformation, specifically from a perspective for leadership team. The team should own it, engage, adopt, and adapt to new ways of working, new technologies, and inspire the team to go along. Right? So the biggest challenge or learning is that we need to be intentional about it, and it's a journey in a continuum. I cannot stress enough about the fact that it is not a fly-by-night kind of a project. It has to be persevered with. Right? In terms of mindset, we looked at 3 things. When we are a digital organization ourselves, serving the citizens, businesses, and the residents of Singapore, what do we want to do as a digital-first organization? We said this is the mindset that I'm talking about. We wanted to be digital-first in designing solutions. We wanted to be cloud-first in developing applications, and we wanted to be agile-first in delivering business value. So that was how we wanted to anchor the mindset. And then coming to the most important part, which is talent people, as we call it, building capability. And then when I talk about taking everybody along, it's also about reskilling the workforce and just not hiring somebody new. So we introduced a robust technical competency framework, has 12 technical domains, 36 job roles, 117 competencies across 5 proficiency levels. We now anchor all our HR processes, starting from hiring, workforce and succession planning, development, using this, and we will gear up to expand this to performance management as well once everybody is comfortable with the competency framework. With this comes a huge deal of workforce reskilling, like I mentioned. It's really about not just for training or for deepening tech skills, but also building in necessary skill sets such as analytics, agile, and design thinking, which are all essential for playing a part for digital transformation. So that's how we've looked at it as an organization. And some of it kind of carry through to the people function as well.
Right. Peter, bringing you to the conversation and listening to what both the gentlemen have said, what in your view actually comprises digital transformation? What is it and what is it not?
So, other than agreeing with both of the great panelists, I think the only other thing I would add to the conversation is what COVID. Maybe I'll rephrase your question a different way. What has the current COVID situation done to digital transformation and the way we should view it? And our biggest experience is it has. There are very few upsides of COVID. I don't think any of us would ever want to go through it again. However, it has allowed us to challenge our fundamental assertions or beliefs about what can be accomplished and by when. And what we have found fundamentally is we are moving faster in many cases, developing more and delivering more innovation than we ever thought possible in a very short amount of time by sheer necessity. And if I use an example, so when COVID hit, everyone's business processes when it came to talent and recruiting kind of just went out the window. No more taking a candidate to coffee, no more interviewing a candidate, doing panel interview, like everything went out the window. In many cases, the ecosystem self-adjusted. So Zoom came along, and then all of a sudden everybody's Zooming, and a year and a half ago, no one had ever heard of Zoom, right? But in some cases, things broke, and things broke fundamentally. And so in our space, take for example, the concept of a career fair, where it's not a one-to-one interview, but it's many-to-many, and it's many-to-many. Where many candidates came physically to a place to meet many hirers in one place to get introduced to a lot of different opportunities both ways. It was kind of a mini version of what we are as a marketplace. That totally fell apart the minute COVID happened. We looked at the ecosystem. That's a problem. We're a marketplace. That is where job seekers go, and that is a key thing that hirers want, to meet lots of job seekers who are looking for a very specific thing. So we set about, and in 90 days, we had a virtual career platform up and running, and it was a very early beta, and our first version of it was really clunky. And now we're running virtual career fairs in every country, and we're making it industry specific, and we're doing it every 30 days, and we have thousands, and in some cases, hundreds of thousands of candidates coming to a career fair. You could never have hundreds of thousands of candidates coming to an actual career fair. That was only possible due to COVID.
Right. So that's look at it positively.
Just to change and transfer to do itself, and
I think it's also brought to light whatever processes that wouldn't be work. They aren't as working as well, right? And as you're helping so many companies in transformation journey as well, how do you propose they identify business processes that can benefit from digitalization, Peter?
Is there not one? Look, this is where I think you have to be careful and say there's nothing. Digital transformation has a certain skill set, sure, but the fundamentals are just like business has been for a century, which is what are the critical things about your core business? How do you help your customer? And what are the problems to be solved? And the only question that you ask is how can you use technology in a way to solve it? The problems don't change. The problems are the same. I have a bunch of people applying, like Pak Nanan described. How do I develop a way to pick the best candidates? Oh, there's this thing called AI that didn't exist 5 years ago. Maybe we can use that. But the problem of picking the best candidates from a whole bunch of candidates has existed for as long as capitalism has been around. So the only thing I would say is go to your most important problems and just keep asking yourself how to apply technology in a different way.
Right. Okay. Go to your most important problem and ask technology. Now, so it can be tough to get buy-in from your stakeholders in this, right? There's so many factors to consider: cost, organization-wide changes, resistance, and more. So, how did you do it? And any tips that you can share? I'm going to start this with Prasad and get everyone's viewpoint. So, Prasad, how do you get buy-in?
Frida, it's there's no easy answer to it. Everything that you mentioned, factors of cost, organization-wide changes, resistance, they're all very real, and it really depends on who you're talking to. In the context of GovTech, like we said, because we are the government's leading tech agency, it comes naturally to us, and therefore within the organization, we don't see too many of these challenges. But when we are talking to a variety of agencies and ministries, like I said, it really depends on where they are in the trajectory or in their curve, the digital transformation journey. So some of these really happen, but I think it's really about getting through it in a methodical way. There's a lot of influencing that happens. To Peter's point, it's about the problems remaining the same. How could you actually solve for it? And when there is enough evidence that technology can be a great enabler in solving those, why not? So what we do here is really about, again, I go back to certain first principles of how do we influence, what do we challenge people on, what do we challenge ourselves with, and then a very critical constituency of people again, right? Because we haven't spoken about that. So the first one, there are three segments that I would use here. First one is what I call time to say goodbye. So I think it's really important for us to challenge ourselves to get out of the comfort zone. So say goodbye to the comfort zone. With these new tech, the childhood is gone, as you would want to call it. It's time to play with the big boys. So, and that's what digital is. So are we ready for it? Second one, as fundamental as it might sound, it's really about getting back to basics. How do we create a solid digital foundation to do it? And also the OpsTech integration. We figured a lot of that during our pandemic experiences. So strengthening OpsTech, and in the perspective of the government, policy OpsTech. So the trifecta and then that multidisciplinary team coming together and strengthening that was important. And then as part of getting back to basics, I would say building more capabilities and more and more. That was very essential. And then the third one is, again, it's really about the vision. So never forget why we are here. It's all about the impact that we need to create, and who is benefiting. What are we here for? They ask the existential question. So I think we are really looking at some of a combination of these to be able to influence. And then when we get to that, it's really about partnering with them, like we said. So as a functional leader for ICT Smart Systems, we're also responsible for talent in the sector for all of government. So in this role, we recently established what we call a digital academy. So what it was really for is to raise the digital quotient for just not the officers in the domain of smart systems and ICT, but broadly across public service. So Digital Academy is an aggregator of an ecosystem operating at the cusp of technology and government. We work with several content partners. Essentially, the design principle there was to bring the right content partner for every content that we want to deliver. As we speak, we inaugurated the Digital Academy about 3 weeks ago with about 55 programs. Again, going back to the 12 domain areas that we were talking about, and we're adding another 40. So this is a way we partner, and we tell others that we are with you in this journey. We are journeying with you, we are behind you, and let's move forward. So it's a lot of how I'd call a song and dance. There's never an easy way here. It's persevere, influence. For every step forward, there is half a step back. We need to just keep moving forward. Right. Sundar Pichai, the CEO of Google, and I spent 12 years in Google and have a huge regard for this gentleman. He said essentially the role of a leader is to keep making decisions and keep the momentum going. Right? If I look at the role of GovTech as a functional leader, that's exactly what we keep doing as well. Keep the momentum going.
Right. I know Peter's very excited to talk about this. I'm going to get Pak Nanang first, and I'll get Peter to encapsulate it. Pak Nanang, what the buy-in?
Yeah, I guess I fully agree with what Prasad and Peter was sharing, and I think I'm just gonna probably add examples to that, right? So Peter was saying about what is that problem statement that you want to solve, and really stick with it and think about technology, how you can solve it, and then make it as a great enabler, like what Prasad was saying, right? And I think, again, in my experience, there's none. Whenever HR introducing any digital initiative, I can't remember anyone actually saying no to that. And I think the reason why, because we are addressing the right problem with the right relevance. And you were just sharing, earlier, that was timely, right? Approach on mental health support by the time everybody is working from home. In the recruitment space, also the same, right? What the hiring managers care about is that I'm getting the best candidate that I need. That's what Peter was saying, right? And then the whole back end process, they just trust you as an HR team to deliver, right? And again, I think this is where what I just want to add is the element of performance management came into place. Because by the time you're defining what are the success factors of your digital initiative, I think that's where the magic starts to unfold, right? Those are, I know it sounds niche, it sounds classic, but that's it, right? If you're not measuring it, then how do you know it's successful? And that feeling of maintaining momentum comes when you're seeing that things are, evolving. I think Peter was saying 100,000 of people coming into virtual career fair. Prasad was also saying the same, that by the time you have momentum, that you can feel it. So I think putting that numbers is important, because by the time we are selling that initiative we want to do, again, recruitment as an example. So I was basically saying, here is my time to offer. It was 40 working days, and I said, I want to halve it. How can I halve 40 working days into 20? And then the team starts to kind of sticks, right? And then, okay, let's do this, let's do that, and then the AI came in, and so on, and we actually delivering less than that now of the time to offer for junior positions higher. So I think measuring what the success factor is just additional point that I just want to add into what Peter and Prasad just shared.
Right. Peter, you want to add on to this question?
Yeah, I love this question, because I gather, and I'm willing to take a bet, that of the 600, 700, 800 people in our audience today, they're probably not all CEOs who could just mandate investments. Everybody's got to get buy-in for something. This particular question I love, because this is an area where I really believe technology has changed the way you can get buy-in. The cost of experimentation is gone dramatically, exponentially down to near zero, right? And technology has enabled us to experiment at very low cost and try beta things. Tokopedia is one of the best in the regions at trying this in every area of their business, right? You want to try little experiments. So you want to get buy-in for something, build something small that's real, try it, see how it works, and then scale it, right? Bringing something alive for your organization and showing them something tangible costs less than and takes as less amount of time than at any other point in human history. And doing that is a very effective way to gain buy-in to make bigger change happen faster. So for everybody out there, try and learn the tools of digital transformation and hacking your way there. You can go a long way that way.
Right. And just to follow on from that, Peter, right, in addition to getting buy-in, what are some of the other challenges companies face, and how are you enabling them to solve these challenges?
I think the related to that challenge, okay, so whether the cost has gone to zero and you could do things a lot faster, the challenge that most companies, not Tokopedia, because again, they're probably best practice in this area, is the skill set, as Prasad points out. The skill set to do those things have changed a lot. You want to build something really quick, you got to have the right skills and the right capabilities and the right talent to be able to do that. You want to build an AI engine for your HR system? Not even we have enough, and we're an HR marketplace, and we don't have enough AI engineers that we want to spare to put to our own internal systems, right? So we want all the AI people we can get on the front end, right? So talent and identifying the right talent that will help you enable not just the big stuff, but the little stuff as well, and keeping that talent, that is a very, very hard challenge. Now, that's what we do every day. It's across the region as Job Street or Jobs DB, but it's the single most important first step challenge. Got to get the right talent to tackle the digital transformation things that you want to do.
All right. I'm mindful of time, and I still have a lot of questions. I know that there's a lot of questions out there as well. But just I think this is an important question, right? Along the same lines, how do you change behaviors to adapt and boost adoption participation rates? Because you talk about, especially across generations, and that was the question I wanted to bring up, right? How do you get that buy-in? I know Prasad said, mindset. Pananang was saying, ownership, right? How do you do this? Maybe I'll get Prasad to comment a little bit about this first.
Frida, I think, see, to me personally, this a very personal opinion that I have is some of the generations and everything that we're talking about is at best a label. And I always say that the smartest millennial that I'd seen was my 85-year-old basketball coach, or my basketball coach when he was 85. Yeah, he could put any millennial to shame. So I would essentially go back to the fact that we need to, again, to what Peter said, we need to hire the right people. Right? It goes back to people here, hiring the right people and then retaining the right people who matter, who are just not a culture fit, but also a culture add. And then when you have more ambassadors within the system, within the ecosystem that you operate in, some of these influencing becomes a lot more easier. It might sound very cliched, but I think I would put it back to having the right people and then getting them as your biggest influencers, irrespective of generations.
Right. Pak Nanang?
Yeah, and nothing to add there. I think Peter and Prasad was spot on, saying that talent is the key. I myself, I feel blessed actually, because I joined a team that were actually very young, so they have a lot of energy. And I think what I learned though, I think what counterintuitive is that I thought in the beginning, again, in my previous experience in working in the global multinational companies and so on, right? You need to have a steering committee, and then you do all this selling presentations and everything to get things done. But I think what the experiment that we did was you throw a vision and then ask people to sign up and say, what do you want to do to make the shift, right? Make things more simple, more human, and so on.
Right.
And actually, even your most junior person actually willing. And then what they need though is the skill. So there is this in HR. There's this matrix of will and skill, right? What you're looking for is people on the top right with high will, high skill, right? And I think that's exactly how I look at my team. And then whenever we see people that with high will without skills, we do this cross-pollination. So I have one person that I hired with a mathematics graduate in HR, and this guy is like one of his responsibility was telling people how to build a dashboard out of whatever kind of your typical worksheets. You can actually create dashboard out of it. So other people who doesn't have the skills sign up for it. And then suddenly I have so many dashboard everywhere. I have my dashboard for recruitment. I have my dashboard for employee engagement, and everything is like it's a participatory processes because people wants to learn. I think embracing everyone and not counting anyone out in your whatever digital movement you're doing. But you have to take care of them means that you need to help them with the skills, because I believe, especially with the young generation that I can represent, they have a high will and they want to be part of it. They want to do these things, but they're lacking of the skills. So you just need to give that skills to them. Frida.
Right. All right. Peter.
Yes.
Okay. My question, how do you change behaviors to adapt and boost adoption and participation rates, especially across the different generations?
Yeah. Look, I do think I will for the leaders out there, this is for you. I do think there is a little bit that starts from the top and sets the tone. We work in organizations, almost all of our organizations have a boss somewhere and a leader somewhere. If the leaders themselves aren't committed to the journey, it's super hard for the organization to change. What'll happen is those great young talents that Pak Nanan was referring, if you do happen to get them, you'll lose them. To me, it does. Every leader on this call has an important role to play to setting the tone, and the setting tone goes: how do you allocate budgets? How do you allocate OKRs? How do you drive experimentation? How do you use technology yourself, right? So even the little things matter. So the tone the leader sets from the top, I think, is a very important thing to drive change.
Right. Okay. I've got a couple of questions that came in earlier and got a couple of questions that's happening right now. So I'll do a mix of both, right? I've just got one here from Amy Lee Acosta, and she says, all of our employees work from home. How do you conduct online virtual team building?
Can I do this one?
Sure.
I love this question. I want to tell a story just a little bit. First of all, I started at Seek in Asia as CEO of Asia in August of last year. I'm based in Singapore, but the regional headquarters is in KL. My entire experience, me personally as the CEO, from the very first recruiting conversation until today, has been on Zoom. I have yet to meet my own team physically, right. And I lead 1,000 people. So it's a very great question and an important question, because everybody goes, oh, COVID will get better next month. Well, it ain't getting better next month, right? So you know what? I'm going to get really practical for Amy out there and everybody else. You know what I've ended up doing? I ended up with one or two fun team members walking around the house. We take Zoom and go, what can we do collaboratively together around the house? Because they're in their house, I'm in my house. And, team building is about doing things together, right? So I've run cooking classes together. We all made a with the chef, and we've done dance classes where we had to stand up and shove stuff away. Find the communal things that you can do together in your own environment that doesn't include your standard Zoom frame, right? So you got to move the laptop somewhere else, you got to move the iPad somewhere else, and you got to get up off your chair and you got to do things together, because that's what we did in the old world. We had team building exercises, and we did things, and we laughed and we had fun, and you just got to do it differently. So no secret sauce, but the secret sauce includes no virtual backgrounds and getting up off your butt.
Okay, and that no one just looks like a rectangular. If I can
jump in to add, I would probably add something really basic there. Start with keeping videos on, and then seeing each other. I think that's really important too.
Okay. Okay. So this is a very interesting question as well. It says, and this is submitted from the audience: to drive digital transformation, which one should we prioritize first, people or technology? Who would like to take that?
I would say people, Frida. I mean, if you have the right people, they will choose the right technology. Because if not, then you would end up overkill a problem, and you invest with so much money and then it doesn't work. I mean, I've seen also examples in kind of here and there, right? And I think having the right people is the most important thing. And I think starting with the right questions, like what Peter was saying, how do you solve certain problem, and what the role of technology, and Prasad was saying it has to enable, the great enabler. So people would come first all the time.
I would second that. Tech for the sake of tech will never work. The organization readiness and people readiness are equally important. And then we know it, and there is proof out there that most digital transformations that fail are because people weren't brought along in the journey. So I would definitely say start with people.
Right.
Actually, I don't think in business there is anything else that would be rank above people first, be it digital or anything else. The answer is always people first.
Right. A question here from Lulu Shifa. She says, what's the right step to make online boarding for new employees to make, to get them engaged with team members and all employees? And I understand that some people, have just come in during the pandemic, right? And they've never had these connections with the team members before. Peter, please.
Yeah, me. I had this experience. So, wow, I cannot stress enough onboarding has become structured. Onboarding is more important now than any other time in the history of your company. Like methodically thinking through who are the people they need to meet, what are the things that they need to learn, how are they going to learn it sitting at home, right? So, and like the time I now mandate at my executive team level, any new executive team level does not start their role until 4 weeks after induction. And there's a structured 4-week induction. And then the level below that, we're trying to get to 2-week structured induction, right? So, you just got to do it in a very structured way. You cannot wing it and throw people to the lions. And that's just, I myself experienced that, and I have not found any other way other than just you have to methodically program it. And it's exhausting, but you got to do it.
Okay. We've got a question here from Noor Haniza. Since all employees are working from home, how do we know the productivity of the employee? Pananang?
This is where you just gotta trust your people, and leaders needs to trust their team member. And again, I think there's always I was once in part of my leadership journey entering there is this course that's trying to simulate a team leadership, right? And interestingly, the game is kind of like role-playing game kind of thing. So there's somebody talks to you and you respond, and then they try to quantify it, right? And at one point in time, you will add to productivity, but at one point in time, the score will add into the engagement score, and it's basically trying to say that there's no right or wrong, and then there's always consequences of how you react to things. But I think, come to think about it, right? Leading the team myself, I think that game, if I can say, it's not really reflecting the reality. I mean, I learned in Tokopedia. I mean, there are a lot of empathy that we're putting into place, starting during the pandemic, right? And this empathy or just something that employees really need this time around. And then for some reason you just believe that they will be thankful for whatever you're doing, as long as you're kind of thinking about them first. And I think this is back to the human nature and human being again. It's all about building trust and really let people earn. Once you're getting trust, then 1 out of 100 maybe will kind of abuse that, but the most of them are not. So I would say trust is the key.
Right. Anyway, I used to work for a technology company, and I was working from home before it was necessary. And it was just a case of deliverables, right? It doesn't matter when I do it; I just deliver it on the deadline, and I get it done. And I think that's one measurement, right? Here's a question as well, and this is implementing technology is expensive. What do we do? We simply don't have the budget for this. Who will address the budget question?
So two or three things. One is I will come back to my earlier comment that it is a lot cheaper to experiment now, right? And this is sometimes where if you come from a background that you're perhaps not as familiar with technology, where finding the capability and someone who really understands technology really well can help you. Experimentation can be really cheap. So that's point one, right? So now, can you build a scale solution? Can you integrate it? These things then take money, right? So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is, if for the leaders out there, at the end of the day, if to Pak Nanan's earlier point, you know what the problem is, you are measuring the right thing, and you have tried experiments and you're seeing indicators, well, that's time for the leaders to step up with the right budget. So both for the leaders out there, you got to step up if the measurement's there and the problem statement is clear and the experimentation is there. And then for the non-leaders out there, find a way to try, find a way to experiment, and then see where that goes.
Right. A question here from Eve Tan. What is your worst, or I guess, made the wrong choice of hiring via digital in your experience? I think maybe this is Partner Nang or Prasad could address this.
Frida, can you repeat that question?
What is the worst? I guess the worst choice that you've made for hiring because you hired digitally in your experience. Were there any errors? When you hired digitally.
The way I would look at it, it's again, I'll go back to the point that I made about tech being an enabler, and then we use several platforms to make hiring easier, more seamless, but you're not making tech make a decision for you. Right. It's the rigor of the process that we have, and it's the same whether being in Google or GovTech. We have our own processes which fits into what the organizational requirements are, and what's our what's our mantra. So I don't believe that we will be able to blame tech even if there's a hiring error.
Okay.
We need to own that as an HR organization or as hiring managers. Blaming tech is going to be very lame.
It's just easier.
Easier, yes, but is that the right thing?
Okay, another question here, and then I have a final question for you guys. I was like, here's for Teresa. How do you measure if your digital transformation was successful, right? And I think that's the process thinking. Who would like to address that?
Go ahead, Peter. I can add on.
If you were asking that, I was just going to say something really quick. If you're asking that question at the end, you've already messed up, right? So it was really important. You have to ask that at the beginning of the process. What are we trying to achieve, and how are we going to measure that? So that, I just say, if you get to the halfway towards the end, and like, how do we know if we're successful? Trouble is, you've probably not done it so well.
All right. Okay. This is a final question to all of you, and to end on a positive note, right? If you had a magic wand, and if you can do any one thing to progress digitalization in your organization or your community, what would you do? I will ask Prasad first.
Okay, can I just be the party pooper and say I don't believe in magic wands? But that said, two things that I'd really push in an organization or influence people. One, we need to be really intentional. We need to start acting, and then again measure what matters, right? The second one is we need to keep the momentum, and I would just say, how do we think big? How do we act fast and start small? That's the mantra for me.
Right. Pak Nanang?
So I would bring the party back. My daughter is a Potterhead, so she kind of read all these Harry Potter books, and I actually watch it. I don't have patience to read all these books, right? There was this episode where there is something called Time Turner. It's a necklace, and then in this Prisoner of Azkaban movie or something like that. I think the reason why I like that concept of as if we have portable time machine, because sometimes what blocks digital is that fear of experimentation. And again, Peter was saying, the costs are significantly down. So I wish if there is such a thing, people are not afraid of experimenting, right? Because by the time you're wrong, you can always go back. By the time they're doing that 100 times, they realize that 85% of 85 out of 100 actually it was successful experimentation, right? So then that's where confidence come up. So I would answer with that.
Right. Peter.
I'm loving the Harry Potter theme from Pak Nanan. I'm trying to think of something about a Patronus charm, but I can't think that fast. So look, I'll probably end on this note, which is at Seek or JobStreet, we run a marketplace for people's jobs and connecting people to their next working lives. Marketplaces work best when you get all the jobs in one place. with all the candidates in the same place. That's when most efficiency happens. That's when the magic happens, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And in a world where so many people have been disrupted so badly by all the horribleness that's happening over these past year or so, if I had a magic wand, I would want all the jobs in the possible region in one place and all the candidates in one place, so we could get the most amount of people jobs and to their next step in their career to help their families and their lives. And if I had a magic wand, that's what I would try and do.
Right. I know I said it was the last question, but I lied because there've been lots of questions. So probably we'll make, and I'm mindful of everyone's time as well. So I'll probably allow 1 or 2 questions. And this is an interesting one from Monica. She says, my company is focusing on solving digital transformation. Everything is tech savvy, but the thing is that employees are getting exhausted. Then the turnover is quite high. What are the practical humanistic approach that can be brought up? How do you escalate bottom up? And I get it, right? You're fatigued. What do you do? Who would like to take this?
So let me start. It's a great question and kind of goes back to what we were talking about the mental wellness earlier. So again, specifically during the last 18, 24 months, we've all been in a situation which we'd not been in before. So this is a time where trust plays an important role, the genuine care that leaders and managers can espouse, and even people within their teams. I mean, each one can play a role. Just being a lot more mindful and making sure that it's not always about delivery. It's not always about the bottom line, but people are important. And how do we focus on that? How do we bring the focus on holistic wellness back, specifically addressing mental wellness? I think that's really going to be important. And I strongly believe everyone in the organization has a role to play, because they can be a friend, a confidant, someone who's observed something and kind of reached out, or a leader, going back to what Peter said, who's opening up the purse strings and then making things happen. Right. So that's what I would say.
Right. And this is another question, this from Nurul Nabila again, and I think it's interesting, right? How do you work to digitalize if the top, and this is a question about buy-in again, if the top management does not want to change at all? And I guess it's easy for the likes of Tokopedia because you're a digital company, so we get it, right? But how do you get, when people are still seeing HR as a separate function of what is a company decision, how do you get people to come on and wake up if they haven't woken up by now?
If you find yourself in that position and you're in Southeast Asia, please call us. We need great people, and we're a far better technology savvy place, right? So, so look, for the leaders out there on this call, that's it right there. If you don't buy in yourself, you're gonna lose your people, right? So there's no easy way around this. There's no glib answer you can give, right? So this is the battle that people have to deal with. They have to deal with budgets. They have to have support to do the change and initiatives that you need. So yeah, there's a bit of leadership from the top that's important. And if you don't have that, you're not going to succeed.
Right. Prasad, anything to add to that?
No, in fact, I had the same response as Peter's. You should be finding yourself or your resume on Job Street. And he said, it would have been better had it come from me, Peter.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Prasad. Thank you, Patnana. I know we have a lot of questions, but again, and thank you for participating. Not to worry, if you have any questions, please go to Seek Asia, right? And visit the employer's blog, that's seekasia.com. And there will be a second webinar, which is happening on August 18, another hot topic, which is talent acquisition, right? And we also have a survey for you to fill, and you can see the link to the survey right now as I'm talking. So please head on over there and give us your feedback so we can make these sessions more beneficial for you. There is also a report called Decoding Global Talent, which you can download, right? So thank you again to all the panelists and for the sharing. We've heard from everyone across the region, and of course, everyone who has, dedicated this time here, joining us virtually for being with us today. And we hope this session has given you some HR insights, as this is a crucial component in any organization, very much a part of the organization. And I look forward to seeing you all again next month. Until then, have a good evening and stay safe.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.